Hello participants, I am introducing a new subject on micro irrigation engineering. This subject has been designed considering the importance of water and then the amount of water which is used for irrigation. Irrigation consumes huge amount of water and there is a lot of wastage of this water. There is a demand by other sectors, industries, domestic purpose, and there are other utilization of water resources. So, irrigation is the important component oversees a agriculture based economy. So, how to reduce the water supply for agricultural production, micro irrigation assumes an important role. So, we have introduced this particular subject on micro irrigation engineering on NPTEL platform, and this is a lecture 1. In this lecture, we will be discussing about what is the importance of micro irrigation and what are the scopes for micro irrigation engineering subject. So, in this particular lecture, we will be discussing about brief introduction of the course, concept of micro irrigation and what are the scopes of micro irrigation. So, this course is of 12 weeks duration. In these 12 weeks, we will cover 60 lectures entire subject and each lecture will be of 30 minutes duration, and in each week there will be about 2.5 hours, and at the end of each week there will be one assignment. So, total 12 assignment will be there for the whole course. At the end of the course there will be online examination. We will be covering mainly broad topics related to soil, plant, water and atmosphere relationship, basically how to determine the water requirement of the crops, and then this can be supplemented by using the appropriate micro irrigation devices. Measurement of irrigation water, it is another important topic. Then drip irrigation, micro sprinkler irrigation, fertigation, automation of micro irrigation, these are the broad topics. Now, the total course content is of 11 modules and each module have lectures. Also, we have designed tutorials on each topic, major topic. So, the lecture means module 1, it deals with the fundamentals of fluid mechanics and soil water. So, the micro irrigation and its introduction will be covered in lecture 1, fundamentals of fluid mechanics and its application in micro irrigation will be covered in lecture 2, and soil water concept, soil water constants and infiltration. So, on these topics whatever the fundamental concept will be covering, there will be some numerical problems which we will work out in tutorial 1. In lecture 2, we are not basically you can see here we have given fundamentals of fluid mechanics and its application. So, we will not be giving the wide coverage, but its importance we will be refreshing your knowledge what you have studied in major fluid mechanics course, but it is a basic fundamental, it is units and then the mainly the terminologies which are there in the fluid mechanics will be utilized in micro irrigation system, that will be covered in this lecture 2. Module 2 is on crop water requirement. So, in this particular module, the basic the parameters which are used to determine the evapotranspiration, and then the how there are various other terminologies which are there in evapotranspiration, that will be covered in lecture 6 and followed by lecture 7. Crop coefficient and crop water requirement is another topic which will be dealt in lecture 8. Demonstration of agrometeorological instruments. This particular topic is basically we have established several equipment, mainly you can see here lecture 9 and lecture 10 demonstration part. So, demonstration basically this is we have established these equipment in our farm. So, and then these equipment, these data we are using it for various purposes. So, we will discuss in lecture 9 and lecture 10. Then the whatever the basic concept which we have covered, we will be solving numerical problems on crop water requirement in lecture 11. Module 3 is on irrigation water management. So, here which will be covered in week 3. So, in irrigation water management, lecture 12 is basically meant for irrigation scheduling. So, we will be discussing that how much amount of water to be given at what interval based on the evapotranspiration requirement which we have established. So, soil water plant monitoring instruments, this is another important component which you will know, and this is a very important part one should learn about irrigation scheduling and irrigation water measurement is the important topic which will be discussed in lecture 14. Then irrigation efficiency, any system when we are installing, how efficiently it is working. So, whether it is a surface irrigation method, whether it is a drip irrigation method, whether it is a micro irrigation method, all these methods different terminologies are involved, how to evaluate the system. So, that will be covered in it on the topic of irrigation efficiency in lecture 15. Lecture 16 is kept for tutorial 3, which will be solving the numerical problems on irrigation water management. In 4th week, we will be covering the module 4 lectures, and module 4 is kept for irrigation water lifts and pumps. So, irrigation water lifts means the water which is available at, whether it is at a shallow depth or it is at a deep water table. So, different types of devices which are used. So, lecture 16 and lecture 17 and 18 it is meant for irrigation water lifts and pumps. Then next part is irrigation water quality. Irrigation water quality with respect to drip irrigation system, it is important because the devices which are used, it uses a very small orifices. So, water when it is passing, if it is of poor quality, it is likely to be clogged. So, irrigation water quality is another important component of this particular lecture. And then tutorial 4 is kept in lecture 20, that those are the means of problems which are related to the water measurement and pumps will be dealt in tutorial 4. Lecture 21, here all the different methods of water applications we discussed in lecture module 3 irrigation scheduling. In module 2 we discussed about irrigation water means evapotranspiration. So, irrigation methods means there we discussed about how much amount of water to be given at what interval it should be given. Here how to give irrigation water. So, irrigation method, whether it is a surface irrigation method, it is subsurface irrigation method, or it is the irrigation given by sprinkler or micro irrigation. So, here broad classification of different methods will be discussed in lecture 21. We are discussing the main course, means the up to module 4 we can say we have discussed about basic fundamentals of the subject, basic terminologies which are used, and now those terminologies and basic fundamentals will be utilized in micro irrigation component, which will start from module 5. So, you can see here lecture 22 to lecture you can say here lecture 30 means week 5th week, 6th week, all these topics are related to micro irrigation. So, micro irrigation, the topics say lecture 22 you have a drip irrigation, different types of drip irrigation, and then drip irrigation design, consideration and system layout, types of and selection of emission devices, hydraulics of drip irrigation, pipe network. So, we studied in fluid mechanics. Now, the fundamentals of fluid mechanics will be used for design of the drip irrigation system pipe network. Numerical problems on design of drip irrigation system, fertigation, application methods of fertigation, and then different types of filters which will be covered in lecture 30, and then the numerical problems related to selection of emission devices as well as the fertigation will be dealt in tutorial 6. This is given in lecture 31. Then lecture this module 5 continues. It is say lecture, you can see module 5 continues, and here which we see week 7 and week 8 is also on micro irrigation different topics. So, installation and operation of drip irrigation system, lecture 32, maintenance of drip irrigation system. So, you will see how the system can be installed, and then this is a beautiful example, because students and participants will be exposed how to install the system, and this is a important topic where when any student he joins in the micro irrigation industry, they are given task to go to the field and install the micro irrigation system, how to maintain the micro irrigation system. So, this is a very important topic. Demonstration of drip irrigation components and evaluation of drip emitter. This is a practically a system which we have developed for how to evaluate the performance of drip emitters. So, we have developed a test bench, and then you will be given enough time to understand that how to evaluate a drip emitter. So, this is another topic which is then soil water movement under drip emitter, means research work has been carried out by large number of students worked with me, and this is a basic fundamental research, means work which is required. One should know when we know the infiltration process, but when the water coming from a drip emitter, when it is falling on the soil and how does it move below the soil surface. So, here it involves research exposure and how the water is moving under a drip emitter. Then design and development of drip emitter, an economical drip emitter, this is another challenging task, and you will be given exposure how to design, then basic fundamentals of continuity equation, basic fundamentals of the Navier-Stokes equations, they will be utilized for development of dripper. We did this work at our place by some of my students, they have been working, and we are exposing you to this topic. You can come, so that you can come out with the another different another low cost drip emitters. So, those things will be used here. This is not only for the agriculture engineering student, rather this is also useful for the micro irrigation industry. So, that they can design, they can come out with the economical small size dripper, so that it becomes less expensive and farmers can adopt such type of drippers. So, lecture 37 in week 37, 38 and 39, these will be dealt in week 8 of module 5, and these topics are already given in these lectures. Module 6 is for sprinkler irrigation system. This sprinkler irrigation system, it is a overhead sprinkler irrigation system. This is also an efficient method of water application, and this has been initially this particular method of irrigation was used, still being it is used for tea gardens, but now large number of farmers they are showing interest. So, its basic performance, how the sprinkler irrigation system it looks like, how it should be designed. So, lecture 40 and 41 will be covered in week 8. Week 9 we are talking about the how to evaluate sprinkler system. So, this is also a laboratory experiment. You will be given one sprinkler head and then various parameters which are required to evaluate a sprinkler head, that will be discussed in this lecture 42. There are numerical problems related to the various aspects of sprinkler irrigation system, and its design will be discussed in lecture 43 and 44. Then its installation, its layout, its operation and maintenance will be dealt in week 9 of the lecture 45. Module 7 is another important part. Any manufacturer, when they manufacture, its quality and its reliability of working, it is very important. So, Bureau of Indian Standards and International Research Standard Organization in Switzerland, and Bureau of Indian Standard, it is located in New Delhi. So, these standard they have specified the quality parameters, and those standards will be discussed for the drip irrigation system in lecture 46, and then the standard and quality assurance of sprinkler irrigation system components has been dealt in lecture 47. So, module 7 is basically it is meant for standards and quality assurance of irrigation system components. Module 8 is another important component. This is on solar PV operated micro irrigation system, and this will be covered in week 10. Lecture 48 is basically the basic understanding of solar PV, that is solar photovoltaic system for irrigation, part 1, where different terminology, different important terms it will be dealt. Lecture 49 is another about the design of the system, and then the how to match the solar power system with the micro irrigation system. So, matching and integration part will be dealt in lecture 49, and then lecture 50 is we will be dealing the numerical examples on solar PV irrigation system. Now, Government of India is promoting this system, and a large number of engineers, not only from agriculture engineering discipline, the other disciplines of engineers, say electrical engineering and electronics engineering will be needed for this particular aspects, and already this system is being installed for power generation. So, one should attend this course. This particular topic is very important from that point of view. Module 9 is on automation of micro irrigation system, and this is given in 11th week, and then all 4 topics, 4 lectures, all 4 lectures on automation of micro irrigation system, that is lecture 51 is part 1, where we are discussing different types of the systems which of automation. So, Internet of IoT, and then your information technology and information and communication technology. There are various and then different types of sensors, how to integrate these sensors with hardware, and then how to automate micro irrigation system. These are discussed in lecture these 4 lectures. Point is this one, these lectures are useful not only for the student those who are attending, but rather industries those who are interested to come with, it is useful for them. And then the lectures are useful for agricultural engineering. These lectures are also useful for electronics and electrical engineering student, and we invite them to be there, so that the discipline of this agriculture engineering and this particular course micro irrigation engineering, this will be useful, and then it can really go to the field and farmers can adopt these technologies. Module 10 is economic evaluation of micro irrigation system. Any system when we are talking, unless it is not economically viable, it will not be accepted by the community. So, what are the different terminologies which are used for economic evaluation, economic analysis? So, lecture 55, lecture 56 and lecture 57, these all 3 lectures on the theory part of the economic analysis have been discussed, and then the numerical examples related to the terminology theory which we are discussing in those 3 lectures will be used to solve the problems related to the economic analysis of micro irrigation system. Module 10 is dealt in week 12, and so in this one module 11 we are discussing about precision agriculture. This is a new emerging topic, and where large number of disciplines are interested. It is not only agriculture engineering, here the science means, because it involves various facets. It involves the sensors, it involves the remote sensing application, it involves GIS application, it involves mechanical engineering. Mechanical engineers are interested in this. It involves various aspects of the robotics. It involves the various aspects of your this UAE unmanned aerial platform, that is drone. So, large number of disciplines are involved, and this is where micro irrigation also plays as one of the input component. So, we will be discussing in lecture 59 and lecture 60, it is the concluding part of this course, how this course, what we have developed, what we have dealt in all 59 lectures, which will be covered in lecture 60, that is micro irrigation engineering epilogue. Now, coming to this particular lecture more detail, let us try to know about micro irrigation system. You know, water is a precious element, it is the nature's gift, and without water no life. So, water is the life of any living system. All of us, we will survive when water is there in the planet. So, living system exists in the planet because of availability of water, and for any country the growth and development, economic development it depends on how efficiently water is being managed and it is available in the planet. So, and demand for water, it is by various sector, agriculture, wildlife, domestic, industry, there are all other sectors it requires, it has a demand. Health and environment, it also requires water, and the health and environment of any city, any country, it depends on how efficiently water is being used and managed as well as available in the system. Now, when we are talking, just now I told water use and how it is being utilized, and the loss or wastage it is taking place. So, we have taken for example 3 aspects, one is agriculture, another one is domestic, industry and evaporation reservoirs. Now, if you see means here from 1900 to 2025 the projected forecasted part, and these are the data which are available. So, when we are seeing these data, so there are 3 components which has been discussed. So, green here in case of agriculture, when you are seeing here, the dark green it is for water withdrawal, means water is extracted either from the groundwater or surface water, that is the withdrawal it is being taken. So, you can see here the means the water withdrawal it is continuously it keeps on increasing, there is no decrease, rather it is increasing, exponential increase is there. And then also the consumption means the water being withdrawal or it is being supplied. So, what we see here the consumption and then water withdrawal. So, rest of the thing it is the wastage, it is the loss, means we are wasting more than the what we are withdrawing, and this gap, if you see this gap it keeps on increasing. So, this gap which we see here, that this gap is keeps on increasing. So, this is the in agriculture as compared to if you see here in domestic supply, there is a demand, it is increasing, it is also you see their water being extracted for domestic sector is also increasing because of the increase in population. So, demand is increasing, of course, living standard of the people have started using washing machine, in washing machine also lot of water. So, various aspect where the water is being consumed and water which is being used for particular purpose, there is a huge amount of water it goes as a wastage. Same thing is happening in case of industry, and then huge amount of water it is going as the loss, as evaporation loss. So, various sectors the water which is being extracted and then it is being used, there is exist. And then global, when we look at the global water scarcity. So, what we see the in 2000 these are already the water, the availability of water is less than 1000 cubic meter per person per year, it is less than available in these places. But when we look at the 2050, these the where the dark red exist, means it is increasing, and India is not the safe, we will be also falling between 1000 to 2000 cubic meter per year per person, that is the projection. So, demand for the water is going to be more, and we will be falling in the category where water scarcity zone will come. Now, there are you can see here the from the Indian perspective point of view, we have the total, if we take, there are 2 important sources, that is land and water. So, out of the total global water, if global water scenario if you see, we have got only 4% of the water scenario and 2.3% land. In 2.3% of the global area, we have got 17% of the population and 11% is the livestock. So, means we have a huge population, less amount of water, less amount of the land, and that is what it is being reflected in the number wise. If you look, we have got out of the 1953 billion cubic meter of water, only 690 billion cubic meter of water is surface water available. Similarly, for the groundwater, so total utilizable water resources is 1032 billion cubic meter, and so means the present level of utilization it is about 60% of the available water. So, we are left only 40% of the water in the years to come. This is another interesting part. If you see here, to take 1 cup of coffee we need 140 liters of water. Similarly, for if we are cultivating rice crop, to get 1 kg of rice we have to use 3000 liters of water. So, these are the some of the important statistics we need to. Now, from these two this particular slide, if you look at this, we need to grow such crop which are less water consuming, and also we need to go for such method of irrigation where there is a less water wastage. So, if you look at the figure, this is just to make you aware that the total we have a 329 million hectare area, out of which 172 million hectare area is cultivable area and net irrigated area is about 70 million hectare, and based on the different crops which are suitable, which can be grown by using micro irrigation system, that is 69.5 million hectare. Out from this 69.5 million hectare, 27 million hectare area it can be brought by using drip irrigation system. Sprinkler irrigation system can be adopted in 42.5 million hectare area. So, by converting, if we convert 1 lakh hectare area under micro irrigation system, we will be saving 347 million cubic meter of water annually, just simply by 1 lakh hectare area, and we will be saving energy of 271 lakh kilowatt hour per year. So, this is the another, and then exchequer of rupees 105 crore rupees will be saved if we are using micro irrigation system to apply fertilizer along with the irrigation water. That is why MI plays an important role. What is MI? What is micro irrigation? Micro irrigation is precise application of water at the root zone of the crop, either it is in the form of a drop by drop or continuous drop or tiny streams through by using the emission devices. We deliver here the water to wet the plant root zones, means wet the soil near the plant root zone, and it can be kept at the soil surface or below the soil surface. We need to select appropriate emission device considering the type of soil, considering the particular type of crop, and then knowing the how much is the amount of water it requires. It requires low pressure systems, and there are different devices which are used. It could be drip emitter, it could be micro sprinkler, jet sprayer, bubbler, fogger, all these are the devices which are used. We will be discussing in detail, of course, when we will come to that particular lecture, but this is the overall layout of the micro irrigation system, where water is being supplied from the source, it goes to the nutrient tank, it goes to the filter, then it comes to the main pipeline, and from main pipeline it is supplied to the sub main pipeline. Depending on the number of the laterals we want to give irrigation, accordingly the water will is given to the laterals. These are the smaller pipelines, and on these lateral pipeline emission devices are fitted, and then water is given to the individual plants. So, there are different ways of giving water to the plants that we will be discussing in coming lectures. Why micro irrigation system? Because you can see here, when you compare the water utilization and then water application efficiency, when we give flood irrigation system, the application efficiency is 40 to 60%. When it comes to the sprinkler irrigation system, we are getting application efficiency from 70 to 90%, because center pivot system is also one of the types of the sprinkler irrigation system, and when we are using micro irrigation or drip irrigation system, we are achieving 90% of irrigation. So, you can see here, when we are using surface conventional method of irrigation, how the water is being given, whole field is flooded, plant does not need this much of water. When we are using the drip irrigation system, you can see only the part of the area where the water should be given, it is being given. So, that is why micro irrigation system it takes an important role, and this should be taught in the program. It has got some certain advantages. There are water saving, there is enhanced plant growth, and it gives the higher yield. There is a uniform and better quality of the produce. Here there is a efficient and economic use of the fertilizer. I was telling you, we are saving exchequer of 105 crore rupees when we only irrigate with the micro irrigation system in 1 lakh hectare area. That is why economic use of the fertilizer, efficient way of the water fertilizer can be given. There is a less weed growth because water is giving at a particular point. So, whole field is not flooded. So, moisture is not available. There is a less weed growth take place, possibility of using saline water and suitable. This method of irrigation is used, can be used for the in the wasteland also, because water is applied in at a very slow rate. So, there is no soil erosion, there is a flexibility in operation. You can give water at half of the field at one time, whole field at a stretch. You can, there are several operations it is possible because it has a control. Easy in installation, well, this requires skill in installation, I will say, once it is installed. So, there is no problem at the later stage. There is a labor saving, suitable to all types of terrain, means level land, it is a hilly terrain, down the slope, all kinds of terrain it can be. And then because the part of area it is being irrigated, it is not coming in contact, the whole field is not flooded. So, there is a less possibility of disease and pest infestation. There are disadvantages and limitations of the system. It involves high initial investment. No doubt government of India is promoting this irrigation system. So, subsidy to the tune of the 50% is given to the farmers. It involves of course, maintenance requirement, because emitters and clogging, emitters clogging is the problem. Yes, it is there, and this needs regular. So, this is one limitation. Restricted plant root development. So, this means when it is the water is being given from the surface. So, root development takes at that is one of the limitation. Salt accumulation near the plant root system, it takes place. Yes, if we are using salty water, saline water, then this kind of a thing. So, we need to apply at higher discharge rate. So, this particular these are the references you can refer in this particular course. And so, in this particular course we discussed about the different modules and different lectures which are there. We also discussed about the importance of micro irrigation system. Forthcoming lecture we will be dealing with fundamentals of fluid mechanics and its application to micro irrigation system. Thank you very much.